Dear students, welcome to EPG Pathshala. I am Dr. Kunal Keshri, Assistant Professor at G.V. Pant Social Science Institute, Allahabad. Today we will be covering a part of paper on migration and urbanization under module entitled Factors Affecting Distribution of Population. Learning objectives of this module is to understand the factors which affect population distribution, in which important are physical factors, socio-economic factors, demographic factors, and political factors. Population distribution denotes the spatial pattern due to dispersal of population, formation of agglomeration, linear spread, etc. In most countries of the world, there are very wide regional variations of the geographic distribution of the population and varying population densities in the different parts of the world. It is important to understand how and where the population is distributed all over the world, since populations are not uniformly distributed on Earth's landmass and neither are physical environments. It is useful to understand spatially where the population is located presently and where it may move in the future, since the future of population of the world is difficult to predict. By the understanding certain patterns and understanding which factors have the heaviest impact on population density and total population, it is possible to predict the future growth or possible decline in global population and also locate them spatially throughout the world. Then it will be possible to develop policies that can protect the environment, allow for sustainability of the planet, and allow the continued change of global populations. Adverse physical conditions and lack of sufficient opportunities for means of livelihood have been mainly responsible for discouraging inhabitation in certain areas. The factors affecting distribution of population may broadly be grouped into two major categories. They are physical factors, socio-economic factors, demographic factors, and political factors. The physical factors mainly include the climate, landforms, topography, soil, energy, and mineral resources, accessibility like distance from sea coast, natural harbors, navigable rivers or canals, etc. The socio-economic factors include the cultural factors, type of economic activities, technology, included type of farming, and social organization. The demographic factors include changes in natural increase and migration. All the rest of the factors like political boundaries, political unrest and disturbances, controls on migration and trade, government policies and transportation facilities comprise the political factors. Physical factors affecting distribution of population. Man makes the choice to mold space according to his cultural values. Hence, variations in habitation in response to environmental stimuli. He or she relates himself or herself to the natural environment through his or her settlement. Thus, settlements become physical embodiments of an ideal environment. Climate is one of the most important natural conditions. It determines the formation of the flora of the region, which influences the agriculture and animal association of the region. Favorable, habitable climatic conditions are the first lookout for settling down in a place. The climatic belts are the main areas of most of the human activities. It is widely evident from the population distribution in the world that the highest populated countries of the world are generally located in the tropical regions. Warmer, comfortable climate attracts people. The regions provide favorable conditions for a wide range of fauna to grow that support the life system in the place. Agriculture and animal husbandry is possible here that provides food for the teeming population. Places having extreme climatic conditions generally are scarcely populated, as human life is difficult to sustain. The countries in the temperate regions are the next in the population count. The regions are colder than the tropical regions but are hotter than the polar zones. The polar zones of Arctic and subarctic regions remain the least population among all. Too low temperature does not allow a lot of habitation. Vegetation is scarce. The places have very cold winters and very short summers, and living conditions are extremely difficult. Topography or terrain is another important factor affecting population distribution. Navigable areas are more populated than the rough ones. Mountains are less preferred because lack of the arable land. In addition, the cost of transportation, construction and agriculture adds up the living expenditure. High altitude in general imposes an ultimate physiological limit upon human existence due to reduced atmospheric pressure and low oxygen content. Higher altitude also inversely affects the population distribution and growth. Low-lying plains and coastal areas are thus the most favorable areas for population settlements. For instance, the Himalayas are the scarcely populated, whereas the Ganges Valley is one of the densely populated areas of the world. Coastal regions offer ocean transportation, thus major cities of the world are generally located in the coastal areas. Water is essential for human survival. The ancient civilizations of the world flourished near rivers, oceans and coastal areas. The Nile River, the Amazon River, the Ganges all had civilizations on the banks. Adequate rainfall affects the vegetation and agriculture in a place, determining the habitation. There is no population on the vast expansion of deserts. Similarly, there is a less population on the rain shadow side of a hill or mountain, but the leeward side remains crowded. Population remains heavily concentrated in the well-watered river valleys and coastal plains. Soil quality affects the density and distribution of population. A huge mass of the population earn their livelihood from agriculture, which depends upon the quality of soil. Food crops are grown on the soil, thus it is one of the most important raw materials. The alluvial regions, the deltas and the coastal regions of India support high densities of population. On the other hand, mountainous region where there remains problem of soil erosion, like the Terai region of Uttarakhand or the sandy soils of the desert of Rajasthan, support low density of population. But with the development of technology, modern agricultural science have been successful in devising techniques to convert low yield soil to better quality ones. In the past, due to lack of advancement, the degradation or overutilization of soil many a times led to the disappearance of flourishing civilizations like the Mayas in Central America. Vast reserves of mineral resources leads to the establishment of industries. This in turn booms development and leads to setup of settlements. The Chota Nagpur Plateau is an area rich in mineral resources. The location of a place in the proximity of important towns leads to population concentration. Generally, staying within the city premises adds up to the living costs. The city periphery or nearby towns provide housing facilities to the people at a cheaper price. With concentration of population, the transportation links develop and provide convenient commutation to the city. Natural disasters discourage the population concentration in a place. Frequent storms, earthquakes, floods, wildfire often discourage the settlement formation. People migrate to safer places. The world has seen quite a few examples of destruction of settlement in the past due to the natural disasters. Coming to socio-economic factors affecting population distribution. The choice of settlement is generally based on the natural resources. But with me, man has been able to adjust and control the natural processes to some extent. Now, the factors for settling down does not entirely depend upon the natural conditions. Instead, the wants and requirements have changed according to the soil and economic perspective. Economic activity indicates scope for employment and creates job opportunities. People in the rural areas generally depend on agriculture for their livelihood. If the land fails to support the population in the rural areas, or with the advent of better possibilities in the urban areas, they migrate to nearby important cities. The concentration of population in the urban areas is a result of the choice of diverse economic activities which they provide. There is almost a work for everyone, unlike villages that provide fewer options. Thus, the population density in the towns and cities tend to be higher and continue to increase. Variety of economic activity includes both the formal and informal sector. Industries provide a huge job market and attract cheap labor. So industrial towns have attracted workers from a very long time. Technological advancement has led to the formation of settlements in otherwise uninhabitable lands. Hydroelectric power stations set up in otherwise uninhabited river islands have led to increase in population in these areas. Social organization of communities in new areas encourages the movement of people and settling in newer landmass. Man is a social animal. Thus, it becomes essential for him to form a community, a known environment where he stays. People moving out of their native place tend to settle in those areas or parts of the areas where they find people with language, culture, food, habits, and festivals similar to his. It is quite common to find cities having residential patterns based on communal similarities. Coming to demographic factors of population distribution. The demographic factors are the population characteristics itself that greatly influence the population distribution and settlement pattern. The components include the fertility and mortality trend, and the migration factor. The fertility and mortality levels together influence the natural increase in a region. The differential growth rate as a result leads to changes in the population density and distribution over a long period of time in a region. Migration influences the population distribution in a region. Push factors or negative circumstances at the place of origin often tend to motivate people to move out from their native places to newer areas. Better opportunities to distant land also encourage migration. People move out due to land scarcity, shortage of work, insufficient water or salaries, inefficient medical facilities, inadequate higher education institutions, etc. City lights and hope for better standard of living are sometimes the main factors for rural to urban migration. The processes allow redistribution of population but also puts pressure on the place of destination and increases the population density in this place. Natural increase is actually the outcome of the fertility and mortality levels of a region. If the population tends to have higher fertility trends and population of the place increases, the mortality factor in such situation brings stability considering the deaths in the region. Epidemics and diseases have always influenced the mortality levels of a place. The higher occurrence of diseases results in more of deaths in a community. This was a situation in old times as a result of fertility levels increase to replace the casualties. This effectively increased the population growth, but the situation of excess births than the deaths often increases the population, like the situation in most of the developing countries of the world including India. This creates further complications of very high population density and as a result inadequate resources to use. But the medical advancement, deaths from many diseases have found its cure and the numbers are decreasing. Also, the introduction of contraceptives and family planning options has reduced the number of births in the population. Now coming to political factors influencing population distribution. People prefer to stay peaceful and often detest commotion and unrest. War, political disturbances, conflicts, weak administration have always discouraged population distribution and repelled settlements. War and political conflicts have greatly influenced the population distribution. These events take a great toll of lives and increase the number of casualties in a region. The death rates remain high, forcing population to move out of the places in search of safety. As a result, the mortality rates pick up and the outmigration further discourages the settlement. The nearby lands or the safe spots to the area of effect immediately face huge population growth with migrants. Refugee crisis of Syria is a good example. This is also the situation in regions near to political boundaries of countries that do not have a peaceful relation between them. Even if there is no breakout of war, but the fear of Political disturbances often make these areas the least populated ones. Political unrest and discrimination have failed to provide an environment for population growth. Clashes between different political parties or people with different religious views have often reduced the population in the area. Discrimination faced by migrants on the basis of race, ethnicity, language, food, culture, etc. has often discouraged in migration. This has reduced the population growth on one hand and newer settlements on the other. Administrative policies encouraging migration have often led to increase in population growth in a region. International labor movements take place with allowance of cross-border migration and less strict migration rules and policies. This allows redistribution of population. Policies issued to address important issues like bringing down the fertility levels or banning of infanticides also influence the population growth in a place. China's one-child policy was successful in curbing down the fertility levels for the country on a whole. So far, we have learned that no factor by itself is solely responsible for concentration or scanty population growth and distribution, and all the factors are interrelated. The factors determining population growth and redistribution often act collectively. With the improvement of modern technology, settling in earlier inaccessible areas has been possible in recent times. Questions: why do you need to understand the factors of distribution of population? Which are the main socio-economic factors that influence population distribution? Can political unrest and war affect the population distribution? Thanks, students.